This is Dr. Elliot Realsteen, and I have a PhD in turfgrass management, water distribution engineering, and most importantly, a PhD in street. In the contemporary day, people would rather be given the scarlet letter or a dunce cap than branded a racist. This knowledge has caused people to stretch this term as far as they possibly can in order to make these people feel as guilty and therefore as subservient as possible. This notion has become so far-reaching that one can be accused of racism against a group that is not actually a race. Case in point, Latino people. Believe it or not, there are actual people, many in fact, who accuse others of being racist against Latin people.
A lot of people not only disagree with that, they say the relief effort is subpar specifically because Trump is racist against Puerto Ricans. Watch.
There is this double standard, which I really believe is bigoted in terms of the response that he has to Puerto Ricans.
He's talking to his electoral base. He's not talking about law or about history. He's showing up that he's just racist. Let's call it by name.
You have Hispanics in Puerto Rico. He sees them as the others, not his white supporters. These are people that do not look like the overwhelming majority of his donors.
God, there are a lot of dumb people on TV.
Now, here is a riddle for you. How can you be racist against someone or something that is not in fact a race? Because Latin people are most certainly not a race. Not even close. In fact, the term Latino covers such a broad spectrum of individuals that as a street doctor, I am genuinely shocked that this term is still allowed to even be a thing. There is not one characteristic which binds all the people who are considered Latino together. Not one. Let's start with the basics and define who does indeed fall under this monolith that is Latino. Basically, every person who resides and or has heritage in countries below the Texas border and not including the West Indies and European colonies is considered Latin. During my street studies, I assumed that Brazilian people were not included in this Latin umbrella as they spoke Portuguese and had ancestral ties to Portugal and not Spain. However, the Smithsonian Institution included people with Portuguese ancestry into the Latino category, so Brazilians are Latino too, apparently. Latino people are not a race, as the term Latino includes white Argentines, Mexicans, Venezuelans, Chileans, and Brazilians, with indigenous Peruvians, Bolivians, and Paraguayans, with black Colombians, Costa Ricans, Cubans, Ecuadorians, and everyone else in between. Clearly, race is not a binding characteristic amongst Latin people. Well, how about language then? Well, the majority of people under this Latino umbrella primarily speak Spanish of different dialects. But there are 207 million people in Brazil who speak Portuguese. Even in what are considered Spanish-speaking countries, the realities of these countries may surprise. As in Paraguay, 90% of the population speaks Guarani, while 87% speak Spanish, meaning more Paraguayans have the ability to speak Guarani than Spanish. In Peru, Spanish is spoken by 84% of the population, while 13% of Peruvians speak Quechua. Bolivia officially recognizes 36 official languages, the most popular of which being Spanish is spoken by 60% of the population, 21% who speak Quechua, and 15% who speak Aymara. This does not even include the stark difference between the actual Spanish spoken by citizens in, say, Mexico and the Cocoliche Spanish, which is a mixture of Spanish and Italian that is spoken in Uruguay. That being said, clearly, language is not a binding characteristic amongst Latinos. Well, how about religion? All Latin people are Catholic, and this is a trait that they all share, right? That argument could have been made in a more cogent manner in 1990, but now it is not the case at all. The Catholic Church is hemorrhaging followers in Latin America. It is the primary reason why Pope Francis, an Argentine, was given the papacy despite the fact that Joseph Ratzinger is still alive. He was put in to stop the fusillade of lost followers in this region. Atheism and irreligiosity and Protestantism are on the rise in Latin America. 40% of Uruguayans are religiously unaffiliated, with 14% of the population reported as atheist. 11% of Argentinians are atheist or agnostic. 25% of Chileans are irreligious. 8% of Venezuelans and Colombians are atheist. And this does not take into consideration the large chunk of what used to be Catholic populations who are now Protestant Christians. For instance, countries like Chile, Uruguay, Brazil, and Mexico, which were 90 to 95% Catholic countries in the 1990s, are now 55%, 45%, 64%, and 83% Catholic, respectively. So, safe to say that religion does not bind these people together either. Well, if it is not skin tone, language, or religion, then it must be culture and heritage, right? Yeah, now you're really grasping at straws. People who fall under the Latino umbrella have a plethora of extractions, the majority obviously being Spanish, Portuguese, and indigenous. However, there are many other cultures which make up millions of people who fall under the Latino rubric. 60% of Argentinians have Italian origins. Almost 20% have French lineage, and a vast number have Germanic heritage. And this is true for many other countries in Latin America besides Argentina. There are also millions of people of East Asian ancestry in countries such as Peru and Brazil. And all you have to do is look no further than former President of Peru, Alberto Fujimori, and the more than 2 million Brazilians of East Asian descent to see this. The continent also contains a strong Arabic influence, as there are more than 12 million Arabic people in Brazil, 4 million in Argentina, 1.6 million in Venezuela, 1.5 million in Colombia, 1.5 million in Mexico, 800,000 in Chile, 275,000 in Honduras, and many millions more spread out amongst other countries. So heritage is also not a binding trait. So it's not language, race, religion, culture, or heritage that these people share, then I suppose it is geography, right? Well, that cannot be true, as Latin people in Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, and Honduras live in North America, while Latinos in Brazil, Peru, and Ecuador live on a different continent, South America. And within South America itself, a direct flight from Caracas, Venezuela to Rio Grande, Argentina is almost a 19-hour direct flight, which is approximately the same flight time to Senegal from Venezuela. So Latin people living on the same continent are not necessarily in close proximity. Long story short, Latino people are a very diverse group of people with varying races, ethnicities, cultures, heritages, languages, and religions who live in separate parts of the world in different time zones who have no characteristic which groups them all together. Then why, you may ask, have they been put into this giant, ambiguous monolith which has been unchallenged for many years? How can claims of being racist or bigoted against such a diverse group be taken seriously and even classified as hate crimes?
And are you worried then, if you're worried about him being on this kind of Hitler-like journey or evolution, how worried are you then about the physical safety and security of Hispanics, of Mexicans living in the United States under a Donald Trump presidency? There are claims already that anti-immigrant rhetoric in recent years have led to a rise in hate crimes against Hispanics in the United States. Are you worried about what will happen to them under a Donald Trump presidency?
The answer is simple: political expediency. Collectivists love to draw lines in the sand around groups of people, even if it makes no sense to group these people together, and then set them against one another on the social battlefield. Politicians especially love this development as it allows political parties to pander to millions of people based solely on their group affiliation in exchange for votes. It is Occam's razor. These people are being used for votes and political power. If you can be placed into a monolith and pandered to by politicians and special interest groups for your vote and support, then the political powers that be will continue to group everyone off into large groups based on nebulous characteristics. The term Latino is absolutely ridiculous, as it encompasses a white Italian born in Argentina who speaks Spanish, an indigenous Peruvian who speaks Quechua, a white German born in Brazil who speaks Portuguese, a black Ecuadorian, a Guarani-speaking Paraguayan, and a white Colombian of Arabic descent. And this is supposed to be a race of people? This is an ethnic group? It's time to start acting like grown-ups, and more importantly, it's time to reject groupthink and collectivism and approach life as individuals for a change. Come on, people.